Hi there, crafty friends, it's Jarle. Thank you for being here with me. I made a festive rainbow card and I want to share the process with you today. I started with a piece of Bristol smooth cardstock which I trimmed to 4¼ by 5½ inches. I wanted to create 2 rainbows on my background panel. So I chose distress oxides in the colors festive berries, dried marigold, scattered straw, cracked pistachio and tumbled glass. To make my rainbow, I took out the corner rainbow stencils from Lawn Fawn. These 2 layering stencils make it super easy to create simple rainbows. To make sure my panel wouldn't move as I'm stenciling, I created this little loop from the Spellbinder's Best Ever Craft tape. This way I taped my panel to the Make Art station and I could easily remove the tape later. So I will create a big rainbow on the bottom right corner and a smaller rainbow at the top left corner. I'm placing my stencil where I want that first bigger rainbow. Then I am taking the Heavy Doodle masking tape here and I'm masking off the pieces where I don't want any ink just yet. I'm kind of a messy stenciler, so I really want to make sure I don't get any ink splotches somewhere I don't want to. So first I'm starting with the red color, which is the festive berries, and with my blending brushes I'm going over that first arch of the rainbow. Now if I were to do this again, I would definitely use my paper pouncers for this. Now I only have one set of paper pouncers and I use these with my regular dye inks or my regular distress inks. So that's why I didn't use them here with my oxides. So when this first color is done, I'm taking all my masks off and I'm also rubbing off the excess ink just a little bit. And then, as you can see here, I'm placing my masks just where I did that first arch on those reds. And also below the arch I want to stencil now. So I'm taking that yellow color, so which is the scattered straw, I think. And I'm stenciling on that next bow or that next arch. There will be an orange arch in between the red and the yellow, but I will need my second stencil for that. You will see that just in a second. So when that third or that yellow arch is done, I'm moving on to my blue arch. So doing the same thing again here, placing my masks, then taking that tumbled glass color and stenciling on that color on that bottom right corner right there. So as you can see here, I have 3 arches all done. So I'm placing my second stencil on top. The stencil kind of has an etching detail, so it's actually super easy to line up. So in between the red and the yellow arch comes the orange one, and in between the yellow and the blue comes the green one. So I did speed up this part of the video just because it's just the same as I showed you earlier. So placing that stencil, then putting on all of those masks, and then stenciling on that color I want to. So I did the orange with the dried marigold, and here I am doing the green with the cracked pistachio. So here for the big reveal. I always love this part. With this 2-layered stencil I created this super fun and colorful rainbow. And then off camera I just do the same for the rainbow on the top left corner. I didn't show it on camera just because it's exactly the same as I did earlier. And here you can see that final result. Isn't it super cute? I already love how it's turning out. I didn't really like that stark white in between both of the rainbows. So with a little bit of tumbled glass oxide ink, I went over those white spaces just to create a subtle blue sky. And I'm liking this look much more than that stark white. I die cut the Let's Celebrate backdrop out of some plain white cardstock. I put this on top of the rainbow background, but I didn't really like how it looked. I wanted the rainbows to be more subtle at this point. So I tried putting a piece of vellum on top of the rainbows, and I liked this way more. So I trimmed it down to A2 size, which is 4¼ by 5½ inches. Then I put some liquid adhesive all around that backdrop frame and I put it on top of my vellum piece. And I will set this background aside just for now. I just got this giant Make-A-Wish sentiment die and I really wanted to use it on this card. So I die cut the giant sentiment out of Bristol Smooth cardstock. And then I did ink blend this sentiment with cracked pistachio, tumbled gloss and shaded lilac, but I wasn't quite happy with the look. You can see here when I put it on the background, it just didn't pop. So I laid it aside and I'll be coming back to this in a moment. Back to my background. At this point I decided to turn my card into a shaker. So I took the Heavy Doodle foam strips and I put those all around the back of the frame of the Let's Celebrate backdrop. So that vellum piece that I showed you earlier. I love these Heavy Doodle strips just because they create the perfect height if you want to make shaker cards. So I removed the liner paper of all those foam strips. And then there's a quick tip here. So I move my anti-static powder tool all around the edge of the foam strips to remove any stickiness. Don't move it on the top of those strips or your foam strips won't stick anymore. So you just want to move it on those sides so that all the sequins can move around freely. I took some sequins of Picket Fence Studios. The shaker pack is called Rainbow and it has the most beautiful colored sequins. I poured these on top of the vellum panel and then I put my rainbow panel on top. You always have to make sure to press the panel down firmly, just as you see me doing here, so the sequins are locked in very, very tightly. You can see all those beautiful sequins shaking around in this background. Now I do want to mention that I regretted adding vellum over the rainbow instead of clear acetate. I spent my time ink blending those rainbows, but at this point they were kind of lost in the background, if you know what I mean. So if I were to make this card again, I would definitely just use acetate instead of vellum for my shaker. But I'm just rolling with it. In my mind it wasn't going to be a shaker card either, so that was also a spur of the moment. Sometimes that happens, right? Okay, so now back to that sentiment. I die cut the giant Make-A-Wish again out of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I did really want to ink blend this, so I just went with bolder colors. I chose Wilted Violet and Mermaid Lagoon for this. So I started with the blue and then went in with the purple, and I just went back and forth between the two colors until I was happy with the result. You know, I'm a sucker for ink blending. It must be my all-time favorite card making technique. So this is the ink blended sentiment, and as you can see, this pops way more than the earlier ink blended sentiment. Much better, I would say. Now I did want little pops of color all around the frame as well, so I die cut the stars from the Let's Celebrate backdrop out of a few sparkle cardstocks. So I have that pinky one, a yellow and the green one, and here you can see all those tiny little stars I will be putting on that backdrop later. First, I'm adhering that giant sentiment. I wasn't going to let that other sentiment go to waste, so I took it and I placed it behind that bright sentiment, a little bit at an offset. So the pastel colored sentiment functions kind of like a shadow for the bright one, so the bright Make-A-Wish. So I put some liquid glue on that bright sentiment and stacked the two die cuts. And then when the placement was okay, I put liquid adhesive on that whole sentiment and I adhered it to my card panel just in the middle. Those little stars were kind of like the finishing touch for me. So first I placed them around a bit until I was happy, and then I adhered them with dots of liquid glue. You can see I'm using that beautiful jewel picker from Pink Fresh Studio, or as I call it, the magic wand. It's just so super beautiful, and it really works well. You can pick up all those tiny pieces with no effort at all. So I enjoy working with it. But then here I was thinking it does need something else. So I die cut a stitched rectangle frame out of blue sparkle cardstock, and I placed this frame on top of my card panel. This really frames the card nicely, I think. I find that these frames are kind of like an essential in my craft room, just because I use this very often. Here I'm folding my card base at 4 1/4, so I would have a top folding card. Then I adhered my whole shaker panel on top of that white card base. And this finishes off the cards. I really hope you like the inspiration. This turned out totally different than I had in my mind, but still I'm kind of pleased with the result. Sometimes you just have to roll with it as you go and trust the process. I will be back with another card and video very soon. Have a great day, everyone. Bye!